The quantum sensors aboard the ESS Hawking screamed in protest as another volley of plasma torpedoes streaked past the bow. Captain Elena Rodriguez gripped her command chair, watching the holographic display with growing concern. The Zarn battlecruiser, nearly 3 times the size of her science vessel, continued its relentless pursuit through the Proxima Centauri system. "Status of the colonial evacuation," she demanded, her voice steady despite the situation. Lieutenant Sarah Chen's fingers danced across her console. 78% complete, Captain. But we need another 18 minutes to get everyone out. Time they didn't have. The Zarn had appeared without warning 3 hours ago, their massive fleet emerging from what their sensors initially registered as a spatial anomaly. The diplomatic first contact package they'd broadcast had been met with immediate hostility, either misinterpreted or deliberately ignored. "Engineering, what's the status of the quantum field generator?" Rodriguez asked, her mind already formulating a desperate plan. Chief Engineer Marcus Wong's voice crackled through the comm. "It's stable, Captain, but we've never tested it under combat conditions. The theoretical models suggest." Another impact rocked the ship. "Theory time is over, Chief. Can you generate a field large enough to cover the colony?" A pause. "Yes, but maintaining it will drain our core to critical levels. We have maybe 5 minutes before total power loss." Rodriguez watched as 2 more Zarn vessels appeared on the long-range sensors. The aliens had clearly expected humanity to be an easy conquest, assuming their superior technology and overwhelming numbers would guarantee quick submission. They hadn't counted on human determination or human creativity. "All hands, this is the captain. Prepare for emergency maneuver Alpha 7. Colonial Command, this is Captain Rodriguez. Initialize Protocol Omega on my mark." The Hawking's engines hummed to life as Rodriguez input the commands that would either save thousands of lives or end them. The ship's experimental quantum field generator had been designed for scientific research, meant to study spatial phenomena by creating controlled bubbles of altered spacetime. No one had ever considered using it as a weapon. Until now. "Helm, plot an intercept course with the lead Zarn vessel. Engineering, divert all power to the quantum field generator and structural integrity. Communications, broadcast on all frequencies." The bridge crew worked with practiced efficiency, even as the gravity plating struggled to compensate for the evasive maneuvers. Rodriguez activated the ship-wide comm once more. "This is Captain Elena Rodriguez of the Earth Science Ship Hawking. You have attacked a peaceful colony without provocation or declaration of hostile intent. We offered friendship, and you responded with violence. Remember this moment, not just as the day you learned humanity will never submit to intimidation, but as the day you learned why." The Hawking accelerated toward the massive Zarn flagship, its quantum field generator creating a bubble of distorted spacetime that grew larger with each passing second. The enemy vessel's weapons found it increasingly difficult to target them as the field bent both light and space around the human ship. "Field at maximum capacity," Wong reported. "Core temperature approaching critical limits." Rodriguez watched the distance counter tick down. "Colonial Command, execute Protocol Omega. Now." In an instant, the quantum field expanded to encompass both the Hawking and the colony below. The Zarn weapons, designed to strike targets in normal spacetime, passed harmlessly through the distorted bubble. Inside the field, thousands of colonists vanished as emergency quantum transporters, hidden throughout the settlement, activated simultaneously. "Colony evacuation complete," Chen reported triumphantly. "All civilians successfully transported to the backup facility on Titan." The Hawking's power core screamed in protest as Rodriguez implemented the final phase of her plan. The quantum field collapsed inward, creating a momentary singularity that pulled the pursuing Zarn ships toward each other. Their own mass and momentum did the rest, as 3 massive warships collided in a spectacular display of unplanned mutual destruction. As emergency power came online and the backup systems engaged, Rodriguez allowed herself a small smile. The Zarn would be back, of course. But they would return with a very different understanding of humanity's capabilities. They had expected to find a primitive species worthy only of conquest. Instead, they had discovered that humanity's greatest strength lay not in the size of their ships or the power of their weapons, but in their ability to turn scientific innovation into unexpected solutions. 3 months after the Proxima Centauri incident, the massive underground facility beneath Olympus Mons buzzed with activity. Dr. Marcus Wong, recently promoted to Director of Special Projects, stood before a holographic display showing the scattered remains of the Zarn vessels. The quantum field didn't just distort space around their ships. He explained to the assembled military and scientific leadership. It fundamentally altered how their targeting systems perceived reality. Their advanced technology became their weakness. Admiral Sarah Chen, formerly Lieutenant Chen of the Hawking, leaned forward. "And you're certain you can replicate this effect on a larger scale?" Wong gestured, and the hologram shifted to show a new ship design. The Hawking's quantum field generator was a research tool we adapted out of desperation. He highlighted various sections of the blueprint, is purpose-built for combat applications. The gathered officials murmured as they studied the unusual configuration. The ship looked nothing like traditional human or Zarn vessels. Instead of heavily armored hull plates and massive weapon arrays, its surface was covered in quantum field emitters and reality distortion arrays. "We're calling it the Ghost-class destroyer," Wong continued. "The entire ship exists in a perpetual state of quantum uncertainty. To enemy sensors, it will appear to be in multiple locations simultaneously. Their targeting computers will struggle to determine which position is real." General Isabella Martinez, head of Earth Defense Force, frowned. "The power requirements must be astronomical." "They would be," Wong agreed, "if we were using conventional power sources. But we've adapted Zarn technology recovered from the wreckage. Their quantum cascade reactors are incredibly efficient, and we've improved on their design." The hologram shifted again, showing simulated combat scenarios. The Ghost-class vessel seemed to flicker and multiply, each copy perfectly mimicking the original's energy signature and mass readings. Enemy weapons fired uselessly at phantom targets, while the real ship struck from unexpected vectors. "This isn't just about building better weapons," Wong emphasized. "The Zarn think in linear terms: bigger ships, stronger weapons, more numerous fleets. We're changing the rules of engagement entirely." Admiral Chen nodded slowly. "They'll be expecting us to either surrender or attempt to match their conventional military strength. This they won't see coming." "Exactly." Wong activated another simulation. "But the Ghost class is just the beginning. We're also developing quantum-entangled communication systems that can't be intercepted or jammed. Tactical reality distortion fields that can make our colonies appear to be empty space. Defense platforms that exist in quantum superposition until the moment they're needed." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity couldn't match the Zarn's industrial capacity or centuries of technological development. But they didn't need to. They just needed to be creative enough to turn scientific principles into unexpected advantages. "How soon can we begin production?" General Martinez asked. Wong smiled. "We already have. The first Ghost-class destroyer, ESS Schrödinger, will be ready for trials next week. We've been building it in quantum isolation. As far as any Zarn sensors are concerned, the construction facility doesn't exist." "And the Zarn?" someone asked. "They've been quiet since Proxima Centauri. They're gathering their forces," Admiral Chen replied grimly. "Our long-range sensors detect massive fleet movements in their territory. They're preparing for a full-scale invasion." "Let them come," Wong said quietly. "They think they're facing a primitive species that got lucky once. They don't realize that humanity's greatest weapon has always been our ability to think differently. They're expecting a conventional war. We're going to give them a physics lesson instead." As the meeting concluded, Wong remained behind, studying the holographic displays. The Zarn weren't evil. They were simply used to being the most advanced civilization in their sphere of influence. Their technology had made them arrogant, comfortable in their superiority. They had forgotten that true innovation often came from necessity, from being the underdog. The quantum field's shimmer in the simulation caught his eye, reminding him of soap bubbles in sunlight. His daughter used to love blowing bubbles, watching them drift and distort the world behind them. Sometimes, the greatest inspirations came from the simplest observations. The Zarn had mastered the art of building bigger bubbles. Humanity would master the art of changing what bubbles meant. In orbit above Mars, invisible to conventional sensors, the ESS Schrödinger prepared for its first test flight. Its quantum field generators hummed to life, and reality itself seemed to hesitate, uncertain of exactly where or when the ship existed. The next phase of human history was about to begin, and it would rewrite the rules of warfare in ways the Zarn could never have anticipated. The ESS Schrödinger hung silently in the void of the Tau Ceti system, its quantum field generators creating a bubble of probabilistic space that made the ship appear as nothing more than background radiation to conventional sensors. Captain Maya Patel stood on the bridge, watching as the massive Zarn invasion fleet emerged from hyperspace. 37 capital ships, Lieutenant Jackson reported from Tactical, including 3 dreadnoughts. They're moving into attack formation. Patel nodded calmly. The Zarn had come prepared for a conventional battle, their fleet arranged in textbook formations designed to maximize firepower while protecting their vulnerable support vessels. They were fighting the last war, preparing for threats they understood. Status of quantum systems, she asked. All green, Chief Engineer Rodriguez confirmed. Reality distortion fields are stable. Probability matrices are primed and synchronized. We can initiate quantum superposition on your command. The Zarn fleet approached the seemingly empty system, their sensors probing for signs of resistance. The human colony on Tau Ceti IV appeared abandoned, its infrastructure partially dismantled. To their scans, it looked like the humans had fled rather than faced their superior force. They're launching atmospheric probes, Jackson reported, preparing for ground invasion. Patel allowed herself a small smile. Initiate Operation Checkmate. Signal the fleet. Across the system, quantum fields flickered to life. The Schrödinger's revolutionary technology had been miniaturized and adapted into thousands of autonomous drones, each capable of generating its own probability field. As they activated, reality itself seemed to shudder. To the Zarn sensors, it appeared as if dozens of Ghost-class destroyers had suddenly materialized throughout their formation. Each contact seemed solid, broadcasting authentic power signatures and mass readings. Their targeting computers struggled to determine which ships were real and which were quantum echoes. They're responding exactly as predicted, Jackson announced. Breaking formation, attempting to regroup around their flagship. Execute Phase 2, Patel ordered. The quantum drones synchronized their fields, creating overlapping zones of distorted spacetime. The Zarn fleet's carefully coordinated movements became erratic as their nav systems tried to compensate for spatial anomalies that seemed to shift and multiply with each passing second. Multiple Zarn vessels reporting critical system failures, Rodriguez reported with satisfaction. Their quantum cascade reactors are destabilizing. They never considered someone might use their own technology to create targeted probability fields. Patel watched as chaos engulfed the enemy fleet. The Zarn's technological superiority had become their greatest vulnerability. Their advanced systems, dependent on predictable physical laws, were unable to cope with space itself becoming uncertain. Signal from the Quantum Boys, Jackson announced. The rest of the Ghost fleet is in position. The real human fleet decloaked behind the Zarn formation, 5 Ghost-class destroyers, each projecting multiple quantum echoes of itself. To the enemy sensors, it appeared as if hundreds of ships had suddenly emerged from nowhere. Open a channel to the Zarn flagship, Patel commanded. When the connection was established, she spoke clearly and calmly. This is Captain Maya Patel of the Earth spaceship Schrödinger. Your fleet is surrounded. Your targeting systems are compromised, and your reactors are approaching critical failure states. You have two options: immediate surrender, or we continue this demonstration of humanity's approach to warfare. The response came quickly, the Zarn commander's translated voice carrying clear notes of disbelief and fear. What manner of weapons are these? This defies all known laws of physics. No, Patel corrected. It simply defies your understanding of those laws. Humanity has spent its entire history learning to think differently, to see possibilities where others see limitations. You assumed your technology made you invincible. We proved that assumption wrong. Across the system, Zarn vessels powered down their weapons as their commanders realized the futility of their position. They had come expecting to crush a primitive species through superior firepower. Instead, they found themselves trapped in a web of quantum uncertainty, unable to trust their own sensors or weapons. Across the system, Zarn vessels powered down their weapons as their commanders realized the futility of their position. They had come expecting to crush a primitive species through superior firepower. Instead, they found themselves trapped in a web of quantum uncertainty, unable to trust their own sensors or weapons. The battle, if it could even be called that, was over in less than 30 minutes. Not a single shot had been fired. Humanity had achieved victory not through destruction, but by fundamentally changing the nature of space combat itself. The Grand Assembly Chamber of the Galactic Confederation hummed with tension as representatives from 100 species gathered for an emergency session. At the center of the chamber, High Admiral Kextol of the Zarn Collective stood before the assembled delegates, his typically pristine ceremonial armor now bearing the marks of recent defeat. "The humans didn't just defeat our fleet," he announced, his translator struggling to convey the complex mix of emotions in his harmonic speech. "They rendered our most advanced technology meaningless. Our weapons couldn't target them. Our sensors couldn't track them. They turned space itself into a weapon." Dr. Marcus Wong sat quietly in the human delegation's booth, watching the proceedings with carefully concealed satisfaction. Beside him, Admiral Sarah Chen maintained a neutral expression, though her eyes sparkled with barely suppressed amusement. Impossible. The Vrel representative's crystalline form vibrated with indignation. No species could advance from primitive chemical rockets to quantum manipulation in mere decades. The Zarn must have simply failed in their military engagement. Wong activated a small quantum field generator on their podium. Instantly, the human delegation appeared to exist in multiple locations simultaneously within their booth. The chamber erupted in chaos as various species' sensor systems struggled to determine which version was real. "What you call impossible," Wong spoke into the sudden silence after deactivating the device, "we call Tuesday. Humanity has never accepted limitations simply because someone else believed them to be absolute." The Archivist's representative, an ancient species that had documented galactic history for millennia, leaned forward. "Explain how you achieved this breakthrough. Our records show no precedent for such rapid technological advancement." Admiral Chen took the floor. "Your records, with respect, are part of the problem. You document what has been done, categorize what is known. Humanity specializes in imagining what could be. When the Zarn attacked our colony, we didn't ask ourselves what weapons we could build. We asked ourselves how we could change the nature of warfare itself." High Admiral Kextol's upper appendages twitched in what the humans had learned was a sign of profound realization. "You never tried to match our technology. You simply found a way to make it irrelevant." "Precisely," Wong confirmed. "Your quantum cascade reactors were brilliant innovations, but you saw them only as power sources. We saw them as gateways to manipulating probability itself. You built bigger ships. We made space uncertain about where our ships actually were." The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The Zarn Collective, long considered the supreme military power in the galaxy, had been effectively neutralized by a species that most had considered barely worth noticing. And now, the Confederation Chancellor's ethereal form pulsed with concern. "What are humanity's demands?" Admiral Chen stood, her posture straight but not aggressive. "We demand nothing except what we originally sought: peaceful coexistence and mutual respect. The quantum technology we developed can be used for more than warfare. Imagine quantum fields stabilizing dying stars, probability manipulation helping to predict and prevent natural disasters, reality distortion protecting ships from dangerous spatial phenomena. You would share this technology?" The Vrel representative's crystalline form shifted to a frequency indicating disbelief. "With appropriate safeguards, yes," Wang replied. "But more importantly, we want to share our way of thinking. The galaxy has become stagnant, bound by assumptions about what is and isn't possible. Humanity's gift isn't just our technology. It's our ability to see beyond established limitations." High Admiral Kextall moved to the center of the chamber. The Zarn Collective formally withdraws all claims to Earth territory and proposes a mutual defense and research treaty with humanity. His translator hummed with what seemed like wry amusement. "Clearly, we have much to learn from each other." As the chamber erupted in discussion, Wang turned to Chen. "Think they understand yet?" The Admiral watched the various species arguing, debating, and gradually beginning to consider new possibilities. "They're starting to. The quantum technology got their attention, but the real change will come when they begin to question their other assumptions about what's possible." In orbit above the Confederation capital, the ESS Schrödinger maintained its quantum field, simultaneously existing and not existing in dozens of probability states. It served as a quiet reminder that humanity's greatest weapon had never been their technology. It was their relentless drive to push beyond the boundaries of what others considered possible. 1 year after the Tau Ceti incident, the observation deck of the Ganymede Research Station offered a spectacular view of the first joint human-Zarn quantum engineering project. Captain Elena Rodriguez, now retired from active service, watched alongside Dr. Marcus Wong as reality rippled and bent around the massive structure taking shape in Jupiter's orbit. "Hard to believe this all started with a desperate gambit to save a colony," she mused, watching quantum fields dance across the construction site like auroral lights. Wang nodded, his attention split between the view and the stream of data flowing across his neural interface. The Zarn turned out to be excellent partners once they got past their initial assumptions about us. The structure they were watching would become the galaxy's first quantum transportation hub, capable of instantly connecting distant points in space without traditional hyperspace corridors. It represented more than just technological advancement. It was a symbol of how quickly things could change when species learned to think differently. Latest report from the Confederation Science Council. Rodriguez asked, though she suspected she knew the answer. "Still trying to categorize and classify everything we do." Wang chuckled. "They've created 17 new subcommittees just to study the theoretical implications of quantum probability manipulation. They're so focused on understanding how it works that they're missing the point of why it works." A flash of light announced the arrival of their Zarn colleague, Chief Engineer Kextall, whose quantum teleportation arrival was far more dramatic than strictly necessary. The former Admiral's child had embraced humanity's flair for the theatrical. "The quantum resonance matrices are fully aligned," Kextall announced, their translator now perfectly calibrated to convey their enthusiasm. "Though I still don't understand why we had to make the probability field generators look like terrestrial sea creatures." "Dolphins," Rodriguez corrected with a smile. "And because sometimes the best solutions come from unexpected inspirations. Their echolocation gave us the idea for the new quantum positioning system." The station's windows automatically polarized as another test began, the quantum fields intensifying until they seemed to fold space itself into intricate patterns. What had started as a desperate defensive measure had evolved into something far more profound, a whole new way of interacting with the fundamental fabric of reality. "Message from the archivists," Wang announced, reviewing his neural feed. "They're requesting permission to establish a new division dedicated to documenting potential innovations rather than just recording established facts." He paused, amused. "They're calling it the Human Perspective Department." Rodriguez laughed. "And the Vrel?" still insisting everything we do is impossible. Better, Kextol's translator conveyed their equivalent of a grin. They've started asking why they thought it was impossible in the first place. 3 of their youth collectives have submitted proposals for quantum engineering projects that even we hadn't considered. Rodriguez laughed. And the Vrel, still insisting everything we do is impossible. Better, Kextol's translator conveyed their equivalent of a grin. They've started asking why they thought it was impossible in the first place. 3 of their youth collectives have submitted proposals for quantum engineering projects that even we hadn't considered. The conversation paused as they watched a test vessel phase through the partially completed quantum hub, simultaneously appearing at multiple points across the solar system before resolving at its intended destination near Saturn. The technology that had once rendered Zarn weapons useless now promised to revolutionize galactic civilization itself. The Confederation Council is meeting next week to discuss expanding the Joint Research Initiative, Wong noted. Apparently, several species have submitted proposals for combining their unique technologies with quantum field manipulation. The Sylphid want to integrate it with their bioengineering, and the Vrel think they can use it to enhance their crystalline computing networks. And to think, Rodriguez mused, a year ago, they were all convinced we were barely civilized. That was their first mistake, Kextol observed. They assumed technological advancement followed a fixed path, that there was only one way to progress. Humanity showed us that innovation isn't about following established patterns. It's about daring to imagine new ones. As if to emphasize the point, the quantum fields around the hub briefly formed into complex fractal patterns that shouldn't have been possible according to conventional physics. The universe, it seemed, was far more flexible than anyone had imagined. It just needed someone willing to ask, what if, instead of what is. The 3 watched in comfortable silence as another test vessel prepared for quantum translation. Humanity had entered the galactic stage not as conquerors or victims, but as innovators who had reminded an ancient civilization that the universe still held infinite possibilities for those brave enough to imagine them. You know what the best part is, Wong said finally. This is just the beginning. We've barely scratched the surface of what's possible when you combine different perspectives and technologies. The quantum fields were just the first step. Rodriguez smiled, remembering that desperate moment aboard the Hawking that had started it all. Sometimes the best way to predict the future is to create it yourself. Above them, reality continued to dance to humanity's unconventional tune, a constant reminder that the only true limits were those imposed by imagination itself.